iNabber's ex-girlfriend has put out a over 30-page Google document alleging a ton of different things against him. This is in response to the 18-page Google document that iNabber put out the other day, which was in response to the Twitter thread that she made about him, claiming that he knew what I'm Alex was, and also alleging that he was just a terrible and toxic partner. I covered all of that in the video that's on screen. However, in this video, we're going to be reading the entire 31-page Google document that she put out in response to Fraser. She explains a whole bunch of different things that happened with Fraser and his dog Kenji, alleging that she was attacked and hurt multiple times by the dog, that Fraser raised the dog incredibly poorly, allowing him to be aggressive and attack and injure her multiple times, and even refusing to put the dog down once it had attacked and injured multiple people, including her, and he continued to joke about it and continued leaving the dog around her while they lived together, along with a whole bunch of other allegations claiming coercion in the bedroom, saying that she became financially reliant on him due to him pressuring her to work for him and pushing her away from working a regular job, also alleging that he would constantly degrade her weight and her looks and refuse to give her physical intimacy. She further expands on the allegation that Fraser brought up in his document about being locked in a room and forced to not move while he records, saying that sometimes it would go on for over 5 hours and he would constantly yell at her and sometimes not even tell her when he's finished recording, allegedly leaving her to sit in a room in silence, not allowing her to leave, and he just would not communicate with her and just keep her locked away. Now, of course, there's also that and a lot more, but please keep in mind that these are all just allegations and do not harass anyone involved. And I'm putting this in post now because the moment that I just finished recording Curse documents, iNabber just put out an 80-page Google Doc in response. God damn it. So I guess I will be recording and reading and posting this tomorrow. There will be chapter timestamps below for each section in the document, but let's go ahead and just start from the top. It starts off with her saying, "My relationship with iNabber. I want to start by saying this is information that I never wanted to disclose publicly, but I've been given no choice. I want to note that whilst there are many horrible situations that I endured, the whole relationship wasn't awful. I had a lot of love for Fraser at one point. There are many moments that I hold dear, but they do not make up for the fact that there were also traumatic ones. In this doc, I will be sharing personal stories supported by dates, photographs, and screenshots from social media and text messages. Being that Fraser and I lived together, we were rarely apart. A lot of what happened did not transpire over text. A narrative has been spun that I have made all this up for attention, which isn't the case. Fraser attempted to disprove me by recognizing that I did not text him about our issues, which is groundless. Alice was extremely brave, and it made me feel like I should speak up too after seeing Fraser go straight to the defense on his stories. He is not the saint he makes himself out to be. He is manipulative and a chronic liar. I have never met someone with such a Jekyll and Hyde personality like him. Regarding Fraser saying I backtracked upon what I said, I posted a reiterated version of my original post to confirm he was included in me saying I don't think anyone knew the extent in which Alex was abusing Alice. I wanted to clear some confusion. I didn't backtrack. When mentioning about physical implications, I was talking about my hair loss, photo on page 18, involuntary vomiting, intense nausea, migraines, and so on. I thought that was clear. Someone raised a point which made it seem he physically hurt me, and I didn't want that to be what people believed. Although there was abuse and mistreatment in other forms, he never hit me and I would never claim otherwise. Not a backtrack, a confirmation. Him giving screenshots of me in a time where I was clearly in an unstable place mentally just farther proves my point. Handpicking moments without context and using them as a scapegoat when there were tiny moments in our daily interactions in person is something I am not surprised he has done. I have a trauma bond to Fraser, one that I continue to struggle with and work on in therapy. Him using my codependency to disprove my experiences was frankly appalling. A big reason as to why I have never been so public about this is because he has a huge following and the power dynamic between us is crippling, and was throughout the entire relationship. But nonetheless, I'm sharing my story. Kenji. Kenji was fully one of the biggest strains in our relationship at being mendable. Kenji had a lot of issues with food aggression and fear-based aggression. When he went on holiday, the Fraser's friend looked after Kenji and he bit him when being fed. Fraser told me that this has never happened before and was confused. He lied to me. Kenji had bitten other people before, but he hid it from me. The first time he had bitten me was when I fed him for the first time. I had put the food in his bowl and placed it down, and Kenji had started eating, but Fraser was adamant that I needed to wrap the rest of the tin up and put it in the fridge, otherwise he would be aggressive. He told me to take his food away and do that. So I did. I put the bowl back on the counter and started wrapping the tin like he said. Kenji was barking at first, so neither me or Fraser thought anything of it. Then he started attacking me and ripped my PJ bottoms to shreds and got a few bites in on my leg. Fraser admitted he shouldn't have told me to take the food away, but said that he had never done anything like that before. And I'm sorry, I'm probably going to have to censor all of these images involving biting and body marks, but the Google Doc is on Kurt's Twitter page if you're curious to see them. But it's just an image of her leg with 2 patches on it, like Band-Aid patches, covering a bite mark. And she captions it, "the first bites I had." Kenji also has a lot of noises he is scared of. He is also scared of people being in the kitchen with their backs turned to him. I was aware of this when I was cleaning the kitchen one morning when I had gotten up really early. Kenji was in his crate and he made no fuss about what I was doing, so when I was done, I let him out of his crate. We had cuddles on the sofa, and then I wanted to make a coffee. I made it with no issues and went to sit with him, but then he started attacking me. He was chasing me and trying to bite me in the most savage way I'd ever seen. I was screaming for help from Fraser, but somehow he didn't hear me or Kenji's barking. I ended up pulling a blanket straight and held it out in front of me so he couldn't bite me, and he was biting that instead. I climbed onto the sofa, still screaming for Fraser. Nothing. I changed my tactics and spoke to Kenji calmly, and after a while he calmed down. I tried to get up to leave the room, but when I moved, he tried to attack me again. He had me stuck on the top of the sofa, not being able to move. He guarded me. If I moved in any way, even to try and get more comfortable, he would go to attack me. I was messaging and calling Fraser in hopes he would wake up to come help. 2 hours I was stuck on top of the sofa, silently sobbing, whilst he watched me before Fraser came in. Kenji had attacked me and Fraser a few times. Kenji even bit Fraser's face and hands once. We got a specialist trainer, made a routine, and made a lot of changes that seemed to benefit him and his behavior. I was consistent, Fraser was not. He would stick at the training and routine for a week and then slack. Then Kenji would be back to square one. When we moved to flats on March 2023, Fraser abandoned his crate training and wanted him to sleep in the bed with us again. He was adamant that it was fine because Kenji was fine in his flat and had no issues with the kitchen or noises like he did before. As soon as Kenji should improve behavior, Fraser would throw all the training out the window no matter how many times this issue came back. One night, Fraser was having a tough time with some YouTube stuff and he was angry. He was shouting from his office and it was impacting Kenji, so I asked him to stop. He apologized and said it was just work stressing him out. He then went back to being frustrated and asked him to shut his office door. He slammed it. The noise had Kenji on edge. He was climbing on top of me and pacing around the bed. I was just on my phone in bed, and the next minute, he started savagely barking and lunged for my face. I put my arms in front of me, and he attacked my arm, frantically biting. It was terrifying. I got on top of him and pinned him down, and then Fraser came in from hearing my screaming. This was my last straw. And again, they're censored, but there's 2 images of her arm with bites on them, and they're very obviously red and dripping. And then she shows another image, which is probably a little bit of time later, where her arm is completely and totally bruised up. This was the only time Fraser had accompanied me to the hospital after one of Kenji's attacks. He cried the whole time about how he was going to lose his dog, and didn't comfort me at all. I had to comfort him. He didn't sleep in our bed for 3 nights. Couldn't look at me or speak to me for days. I was dealing with fresh trauma and he ignored me. He made me call the vets to organize an appointment to get their advice as his aggression was too dangerous for us to live with now. Me. I had been attacked by his dog yet again and he made me call the vets like it was my responsibility. We go to the appointment and they suggest putting him down or sending him to a shelter for aggressive dogs. They give us time outside to talk about the options and Fraser was adamant on keeping him. He wasn't getting rid of his dog. At this point, Kenji had attacked multiple people. Not just us. After I posted about the attack, I had the other people Kenji had bitten tell me about their experiences and how it impacted them. This dog's aggression was dangerous, and I had experienced it relentlessly for over a year. I told Fraser that he couldn't keep him for everyone's safety and he needed to be rational. The vet suggested him being put down, and they even said they don't do this unless it's needed. Yet he refused and he was going to keep him. Fraser had no regard for other people's safety. He never committed to the training, and Kenji's attacks continued to get more violent. I was done. I was tired of the constant fighting between us. I was done with the control Fraser had over my life. I was done living in a never-ending state of fear over a dog I shared a house with. I broke up with Fraser and traveled back to the flat. She then attaches text messages between them with the caption, "He would send me photos of Kenji in a room which the trainer said he shouldn't have access to as a laugh, to someone who has been terrorized by Kenji." And the messages show a image, and then Fraser says night. She says, "Fraser, now tell me you're joking right now. That's out of pocket otherwise." He sends a smiley face. She says, "Whatever." He says, "It's an old pic, ha ha ha." She says, "It's not funny." He says, "It's kind of funny." She says, "No." He sends a frowny face, and then she says, "All right, for you maybe if you weren't stuck on top of a sofa for 2 hours after being attacked by him. He also hasn't left multiple scars in your legs. Like, it's not funny." He just says, "Yeah." She says, "Whatever, man." And then the next morning he texts, "God, I had some horrible nightmares last night." Then she posts more text messages with the caption, "More proof he would ignore the trainer's advice. Kenji wasn't allowed in the bedroom as he had attacked me a few times when I would try and get into bed if he was already asleep on it." And then she attacks messages where Fraser says, "Sorry, I was eating. Kenji may not be in his cage right now, but he'll be soon, okay? Also, you're a predator." She responds, you telling me he's in the bedroom? He says, yes. She says, and not in a cage, excuse me. He says, not yet. She says, rules are rules. And then he sends a picture of Kenji just out, seeming to be on the bed. Then she shows more text with the caption, I'm assuming this is meant to say he showed me time and time again. He was irresponsible with Kenji's training and would make empty promises. And the text start with her saying, and no, sometimes it can't just be that because like I said, you said you wouldn't, but you did. And he says, yeah, well, there's nothing that can be done about that now, really, is there? You'll just have to wait until tomorrow to see if he's not in the room again. She says, so how can I trust you when it comes to him in the bedroom when you've literally said one thing but done another? He says, I guess you can't. She says, I shouldn't have to wait and see. Like, I shouldn't be waiting on anticipation and anxiety to see if you're saying what you promised. I should know he isn't in there because you said. Fraser says, I'm not going to let him in here tomorrow. She responds, but you've shown me that sometimes what you say isn't what happens. So clearly I'm going to want to express my concerns. Fraser says, yeah. She says, this is also unnecessary. Fraser says, I mean, what am I meant to say? No, you must believe me? You'll believe me when you believe me. And she says, if you just did what you said, then this wouldn't be the case. Then she sends more text with the caption, I find these messages ironic now. Not only did he make a joke about me being abused by his dogs, something he did regularly, but it describes our situation very clearly. He love bombed me, and I fell for it because I was desperate to be loved. I really do understand how hard it must have been being told you that you need to put down your pet or that you need to go to the shelter, but Fraser made it all about himself. I had no support from him. And it starts with text messages of Fraser saying, and I guess it's because, like, she says 1,000%. He says, they desperately want to feel safe and have someone actually love them, so they will latch on to basically anyone. And a lot of toxic people are very manipulative and overly loving at the start, whereas normal people are just chill. But if you're in that vulnerable spot, you're probably going to go for the massive overload of love and attention. She responds, when I had to have meetings with Women's Aid, they said that women who have been abused before are more likely to be abused again, compared to women that haven't. Scary to think that abuse victims will likely be stuck in a cycle of abuse their entire lives. He responds, you're in an abuse cycle, but with a dog, he keeps being mean to you, and you just go back to him because you think he looks like a cute Care Bear. She says, he knows I'm fragile. Fraser responds, he loves you, he's just mentally ill, and then sends her a TikTok. Then she links to some tweets that Fraser made, one where he says, we are in A&E now, but God, like this hurts emotionally, genuinely trying to not have a panic attack in this hospital. She says, the entire time we were in a hospital for my dog bites, he was on his phone and tweeting. I was having to console him when the reason we were in the hospital was because of the dog bites I need to get treated. Fraser says, I think the worst part about all this is getting back and Kenji is all happy and excited to see us. Just makes it feel even worse. She continues, the worst part was going back to see Kenji being happy. I don't know, the worst part for me was seeing my arm being slung about like a chew toy, having no emotional support from my boyfriend, having to console him instead and then being ignored for days. The struggles and experiences I had from living with Kenji left me with PTSD. I still have nightmares and have fears of some dogs. And that's the end of the Kenji section, and now we go into another section captioned Sexual Coercion. When Fraser took us on holiday at the start of our relationship, there were multiple times where he was pressuring me into having sex with him when I said no. On this holiday, I came on my period, and we had sex once and made a mess. I didn't like the fact that the cleaners had to deal with the sheets, so I said I didn't want to have sex again on this holiday. He kept pressuring me multiple times, even though I kept saying no. He didn't go too far, but this alone is not okay. The one that made me feel the most uncomfortable was when Fraser paid for us to have the spa to ourselves again. This was COVID restrictions of the hotel in February 2023. He had already stated he wanted to have sex in the spa. When we were there, we were intimate and that we were cuddly and kissing a lot, a bit handsy as well. But I said I didn't want to actually do anything as there were cameras everywhere and he knew I said this. When our hour was up, I said we needed to go as I come and get you if you overstay your time. Fraser then constantly begged me to stay longer, rubbing my legs, saying how we should have some more fun. I got out of the pool and he was sulking, saying that I was ruining a good time and that we should stay longer. Again, I repeated that our time was up and someone will come, so we should just go. He stomped his feet and kept huffing, tutting, and moaning. This went on for a while. Eventually, we left. It was such an uncomfortable walk up to the room, as he was in a really bad mood because I didn't want to have sex in the spa. We got into an argument about it when we got back to the hotel room, and he left. Then she attaches text messages where Fraser says, are we cool? She says, swear we have the same mind. He says, we're just cute. I want my sandwich. She says, I want to get even drunker. He says, me too. That's why I'm waiting for this wine. Let's fuck in the spa on my way, and then sends a photo. Then he continues saying how amazing the sandwich is, and she says, mate, why do they put nuts in everything? He responds, I'll take time off, sends a voice message. She says, woo. Fraser says, whenever you feel comfortable for me to be back, just say. But if you can make that sooner than later, that would be nice because it's fucking freezing, lol. Like soon, this is worse than I thought it would be, question mark, question mark. She says on FaceTime to Carmen, sorry. I never said for you to leave, so I really don't understand why you did. He said, just to give you space, it's a small room. She responds, I never asked for that. I said it was fine out there. Fraser says, I honestly needed time to myself too. I want to speak to you about something, but you don't want to, so I need some time, even though I'm currently freezing. She continues saying multiple times in this holiday he tried to pressure me into sex, and multiple times I kept saying no. This caused a lot of tension, and we had a few nasty arguments about it. Thankfully, this was the only time he did this. Then she ends that section off and continues this new section called Confinement, and it starts off with her saying, Fraser had, or still has, I don't actually know, a lot of anxiety surrounding filming with other people around. He mentioned this to me, but not the severity. The first time he got angry about it was before we went on holiday. I was very tired and was napping on the sofa. He wanted me to walk to Cannery Wharf to go pick up some bed sheets for his friends that would be looking after Kenji whilst we were away. I wasn't fully aware that this was because he wanted to film whilst I was gone, so I was going to do that after I had napped. He had texted me, but I hadn't seen that, as I was asleep. He had gotten very stressed out and came into the living room and snapped at me as if I was going to get the bed sheets or not. I said I was going to, I just wanted to nap for a little longer as I was tired. He then stormed out, slamming the living room door, slamming his office door, and started playing music extremely loud. When I say loud, it was vibrating the floors loud. I got scared and thought he needed space, so I decided to go get the sheets. I didn't tell him I had left as I was scared to talk to him after that. Then she posts text messages with the caption, even then he would try to gaslight me, telling me he hadn't done things that he did. And it starts with Fraser saying, I need to record a video, and if I don't, I won't have anything to release next week. And John Lewis closes in less than an hour, meaning, or we'll have no bed sheets, which I assume is their friend. I haven't even packed. The later this goes on, the less sleep I'm going to get. She says, what size sheets? He responds, what, you left? She says, yeah, what size sheets, please? He says, why wouldn't you say? King size, but question mark. I'm not going to have enough time now. She responds, just sheets or duvet covers as well? He says, sheets, why would you not say? She says, because you slammed 2 doors and played loud music, so I took that as you wanted to be left alone. He says, slam 2 doors, what? And listening to music? Come on. I was working out and listening to music because we're not going to the gym. And then played Rocket League, waiting for, and then it's cut off. After I'd moved in, he told me I couldn't be in the flat whilst he was filming, and for a bit this was no problem. But I was also experiencing very heavy and long periods at the time due to my implant, and would get horrible cramps and headaches. I didn't like that I had to leave what was now our home whenever he would film, as he would sometimes spring it on me last minute, expecting me to leave. Sometimes I'll go to the gym for a few hours, but the other times I had to stay in the bedroom with the doors closed. He started off being understanding about this, but as time went on, the situation became horrible. When I first started having to stay in the room, he would let me know nicely if I needed to put headphones on or if I was distracting him. Then it became I wasn't allowed to make any noise at all. These also started off as 40-minute to an hour filmings, but then became much longer as he made longer content. There were times when I was shut in the room, not being able to make any noise for almost 5 hours on many occasions. He would come in after filming and have a go at me if I had gone to the toilet and flushed the loo. One time I was poorly and he had shouted at me for coughing and for being inconsiderate. I'm assuming that means sick. I had to be so silent that he wouldn't be able to notice I was in the flat, and if he heard anything I was shouted at after not respecting his anxiety surrounding filming, and that if he couldn't film he couldn't make a living. When this arrangement started, he would let me know as soon as he had finished. Then it turned into him not letting me know. He would start gaming instead and leaving me unaware of if I could even come out or not. For hours I would be shut in that room, not being able to get drinking water or food, tiptoeing to the toilet and trying to pee as quietly as possible out of fear of being shut at again, and not being able to make any noise at all. This was horrible. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Sometimes I would get angry because if I left medication on the kitchen/living room table, I couldn't get it. I will admit that there was one time where I just had enough and went and very angrily got my meds and then slammed the door on my way out. I can't express how this impacted me though. He wanted me to live there by his own choice, making me think how wonderful it would be, and then I found myself in a situation where I felt trapped for hours, too scared to do anything. It was this confinement that led me down a really dark path, and I was starting to become very irritable. I would get upset and angry over small things. It worsened my depression. He didn't care that he was leaving me shut in a room, not able to make any noise or being scared to move because he had work to do. This did stop once we moved flats, as he kept our old one to use as a studio. Fraser trying to cover this up is infuriating. Like I said, yes, we agreed to it. It did start off as a little while, but then the situation became abusive and it wrecked me. I fully understood having to be quiet so his mic didn't pick up the noise, but if he heard me move or cough, he gave in a completely unwarranted overreaction. I don't have recordings, but here are screenshots of me mentioning it and Fraser acknowledging he does get aggressive. Not in the same context, but he would also shout at me for interrupting him if he was gaming. As you can see, he doesn't deny it. Then she posts a Instagram story that I believe she made where she says, living with an influencer is not fun when you get locked in the bedroom for hours on end so they can film. And then text messages where he shows a picture of Kenji looking at food, saying, this is how I look at you. And she responds, versus how you look at me when you're gaming, sending a picture of a guy with his fist flying at the camera. He responds, you keep interrupting during a boss battle. She says, the world doesn't stop for boss battles, babe. And he says, yeah, I can tell. Then she posts another update from her Instagram story, captioning it, this was me talking about our relationship because the arguments and how/what he would say to me, and being shut in a room for most of the time was really getting me down. The Instagram story says, on another note, I'm absolutely miserable at the moment. I want things to be different so bad, but it's just not going to happen. To top it all off, my eye is swollen and I don't know why. And then another Instagram story from July 2022, which would be a year before the last two we just saw, where she says, I just want one day. And then captions it saying, even when I weren't in London, there were bad arguments. He would start over the phone. I was absolutely miserable. And that seems to be the end of that section. And now we start a new section captioned, my weight. When Fraser and I got COVID in the first week of meeting each other, he suggested that we isolate together. I was staying with my family and didn't want to risk them getting it due to them working with elderly people, so I agreed. And this week we grew very close and considered ourselves officially seeing each other. In one conversation we talked about our types. Fraser said that he doesn't find fat people attractive and went on to say that he would probably break up with me if we got together and I gained too much weight. I didn't think he was being serious at the time considering his weight loss and still being obese himself, but then I did actually gain weight. For a while this wasn't an issue. But when I got it to a certain size, he stopped being affectionate with me. It started with me asking him for a cuddle and him looking a bit disgusted but still giving me one. Then it turned into, only if I can play my DS, in which that would last a few minutes before he would stop and just play his game. Eventually he would avoid my kisses and wouldn't even hold my hand when we were walking. Eventually I was begging him and crying for acknowledgement, and some form of intimacy, begging in tears for a hug. He started making comments when I was eating saying, sure you want to be eating that? Didn't you already eat today? And that doesn't look healthy. This is when I thought to myself, he didn't find me attractive anymore because of my size. It played on my mind constantly and even brought it up when I broke up with him. We were arguing, obviously, and I brought up the fact that we haven't had sex in months. Like in his doc, he tried to say this was due to him feeling depressed, that his dad had a stroke and his meds, but him not wanting to have sex with me and pulling back from any kind of intimacy happened way before these things even happened. I mentioned this along with how he told me he doesn't find fat people attractive when we first met, and he looked at me and told me that I wasn't wrong and he didn't find me attractive anymore because of my weight. This was the only time he actually said it and it stung. It's also why I asked him in June if I had really gained too much weight to be attractive. That wasn't out of nowhere. I was struggling with thinking that nobody would ever find me attractive again. The comment about there not being a breakup sex was not me trying to pressure him into sex. I don't understand where that has come from. At the time, I was very insecure, as you could clearly see, and I was just spewing thoughts. Then she continues attaching 2 photos of herself, and she says, because of the comments over my eating habits and not thinking I was attractive due to my weight gain, I started restricting my food. I was starving myself, and restricting is something I still am struggling with because of the way he made me feel. I went from slightly overweight to now being underweight, struggling with my body image and restriction. Then she attaches 2 images to show this. One from before and one now, which I will have to censor because it shows a lot of body. But she says, restricting and fear of gaining weight are still a big issue for me. Being told over and over that I needed to eat less and work out more drilled it into me that I need to be tiny to have worth. Something I still can't shake from my mind today. No matter how much weight I lose, I do not feel good enough. Then she posts a picture with the caption, I have spoken about the implication of my ex's words to my friends a lot. On my private Instagram, I have also spoken for months about my body issues that are tied to my ex. And she posts a picture from September 2023 where she is wearing jeans and she captions it, not me ready to cry over a pair of fucking jeans. When me and my ex first got together, he told me he doesn't find fat people attractive and that if I gained weight, he would find me less attractive. When I gained weight, that happened. Lol. It caused me a lot of issues and I tied my worth and my attractiveness to my size. When I put on these jeans today and they fit, my first thought was, oh my god, I'm becoming attractive again. And she posts more from now November 2023 where she says, most days I think I'm still that chubby girl my ex thought was disgusting. Not being able to go to the gym right now kills because all I can think about is him telling me I need to go to the gym. Or when I'm eating something, I hear his voice telling me, should you be eating that? But today, I'm feeling kind of good. I had 3 meals yesterday instead of 1, and even if there's a little bit of guilt, I slept really well and woke up with energy for the first time in months. I'm kind of happy with my body at the moment. I don't want to lose any more weight, so I need to get over hearing his voice whenever I need to eat. And then she ends that section and now starts the next section captioned mental health. I told Fraser that I had depression very early on into knowing him. It is not something I like to hide as, at the time, it was a big hindrance in my life. I've always been transparent with everyone I have dated about the way my depression could impact me, as I think it is important. At the start, Fraser was understanding and supportive. After I moved in, however, whenever I would struggle and stay in bed, he would come in and lecture me about how lazy I was. That he wants to be with someone who's ambitious, and I apparently wasn't because I also struggled with depression. My life was going nowhere and it was embarrassing. He would go on and on. He would berate me for my mental health struggles throughout our relationship. In March 2023, he came into the bedroom and told me that I either had to go to therapy and get back on medication or he would break up with me. This was a particularly dark time for me. We were constantly fighting. He was belittling me all the time and knocked all of my confidence. I was living with an aggressive dog who kept attacking me. I was still struggling with how in the old flat I was confined for hours, not being able to make any noise and get shouted at if I did. There was no love in the relationship. Sex and intimacy had stopped months and months ago. His best friend was essentially bullying me, and he never said anything about it. It was one of our other friends who had called out that person's behavior and told them to stop. Fraser did not care how many times I was made to feel uncomfortable or cried because of his best friend. Fraser and that guy would often pick on me together, and it was embarrassing. I had tried to break up with Fraser many other times, but he had made promises to change and that things would be different. But that never happened. I was again feeling trapped and I had no way of getting out. This is when I started having thoughts of ending myself. I told Fraser this when he gave me the ultimatum. Unlike what he posted the other day, he was aware of my mental state and how everything was getting to me. I promised him I would work on myself and apologize that my mental health was causing him stress. I really did try to be a happier person for him. I put on a pretend happy face and we were okay until the last time Kenji attacked me. The impacts of the relationship were so detrimental to my mental health that I started losing hair when we were still together. Not just on my head either. Then she posts 2 photos of herself, one where she is missing an eyebrow with the caption, "No one speak to me, I haven't got an eyebrow," and another one with what seems to be rashes on her body and the caption, "I started getting rashes over my body and face and I was told these were due to stress." And then she posts another update from August 2022 where she says, "Found the energy for a shower. The small things are so difficult right now at the point where it's embarrassing." And she continues, "Being with him was like being trapped. I had tried to break up with him in March 2022, September 2022, October 2022, and November 2022. Every time it was promises of change, that he would do better, that things would be better for us, painting a picture of how I was his family. He loved me and didn't want to lose me. Things never changed. After I had tried to commit suicide, I started to become a bit more stable and stopped begging him to get back together out of fear of what I was going to do with my life. For so long, I was made reliant on him. Told that he was all I had. He threw it in my face every time when I would try and break up with him that I had no family and reminded me that he was all I had. For context, I was in foster care and have always had a rocky relationship with my family. We had cut contact with each other in April 2022 and didn't have contact again until December 2023. When I felt that alone, that scared to let go, I found it incredibly hard to not want to be back with him regardless of how awful the relationship was because it was drilled into me that I had nothing on my own. For Fraser to claim he didn't know about my mental health crisis is a complete lie. Obviously, I didn't tell anyone I was going to attempt, but he was aware it happened after. Then she sends more text messages with the caption, "An argument we were having in October, again with the gaslighting. Yes, I helped him with his binge eating a lot, but him helping me was to belittle and make snide comments about my food and how I needed to go to the gym more. I also didn't drop that info on him. We had argued about the way he had impacted me in the summer and knew about my attempt and struggles with my body image." And it shows text of her saying, "You can say what you want, Fraser, but how you treated me throughout the majority of the relationship was disgusting. Not just the end, not just you moving on, you destroyed me. So no, I don't care about your feelings anymore." He says, "How? You have never even during the relationship until recently spoke to me about any of this. The majority of our relationship, I just worked." She says, "You don't even remember how you were, ha ha ha." He says, "You have never said any of this until the last day. You were crying to me that you thought we were friends the other day." She says, "People don't get eating disorders and want to end themselves just because their boyfriend worked. It's because you never cared." He responds, "I have never asked you to change your weight in any way." She says, "You still don't care, ha ha ha." He says, "We regularly spoke to each other about both of our eating disorders and weight issues. You were the one who helped me with my binge eating." She also posts more text with the caption, "He also wouldn't leave me alone after we broke up, constantly texting me and talking to me. I asked him to stop a few times as it wasn't fair with the state I was in and I couldn't let go." And then she says, "Sorry about this, but you've made it clear that you don't feel the same as me, so these random 1 messages a day and then dipping is really upsetting to me. Unless it's something important, then please don't message me because they're honestly just painful reminders." He says, "Sorry, I didn't mean to. I haven't really been speaking to anyone as I've been feeling depressed. I won't message again." And then she posts what seems to be some messages where I can't see it entirely, but someone is saying the pile of shit they served us, never going there again, angry faces, and he sends skull emojis, seeming to maybe laugh at it. And then she says, "You slag me off to your friends to the point that they think I should be kicked out, but you message me every day like we're friends. I don't get it." Then he says, "They think you shouldn't be there because it's unusual living with your ex." She continues in the document, "There was time in the flat when I was doing things to myself, and he came into my room asking for something. I stopped what I was doing, asked for a moment to get decent, and then he got him what he wanted. He then proceeded to come in my bedroom 2 more times after he walked in on me when he would usually leave me alone after speaking once. I even brought it up over text while I was at work." The text messages seem to be from July 2023, where he says, "I'm out right now, by the way." She responds, "Okay." He says, "Kenji will be wondering as he was sleeping under the sofa when I left, but he's probably on the bed." And she says, I'll be able to have a wank without you walking in every 2 seconds. He says, Lamafau. She responds, was my bedroom shut when you left? What the fuck did I just read? And then she ends that section off, and now we're on the finances section. When I first met Fraser, I had almost 12,000 pounds in the bank and I left with nothing. For Americans, that's about 15,000 USD. We talked about me moving in a lot very early on, and I will say that there was a situation that I was dealing with that made me say yes. But he actually wanted me to move in before that situation actually required me to leave where I was living. He told me that he didn't want me to have a normal job because he wanted us to have the freedom to do whatever we wanted. He wanted us to go on holiday and do things whenever we wanted us to, without my having to book time off. He said he was more than happy to support me and just wanted me and him to be happy. Although he said he would provide everything for me because he wanted to up and be happy, he didn't. This ate away at my savings as I had no income, and I tried living his lifestyle. I never asked him for money, but he used money against me a lot, as if that because he paid our rent, I had no right to be upset at him for anything. He did let me do research for him and edit his podcast for income. He said he liked that I worked for him many times, as it was like we were like jackmates and his partner. He wanted me to start streaming and for us to make content together. Something I wasn't fully on board with at the start because I had never done anything like that, and spoke about how I doubted it was a good idea as I wouldn't make money from it or I also lacked confidence. He said a good few times that I shouldn't worry about that as he will get me to be a successful streamer just by making content with him. He boasted about how he had made other people's careers online just because of associating with him a lot. I never did start streaming as I didn't want to, so I stuck to working for him off screen. In an argument about money, he once had a go at me because I was being stupid for not doing what he suggested, and that I would have been so lucky because I wouldn't have had to work for followers because I had him. I was always being stupid for doing what he suggested, but then when we first started seeing each other, he was so happy that I was normal and not in his scene. The emphasis on me being normal was something he adored when we first met. And then at some point, he was determined I'd do what he did for work. I was very grateful that he would give me research and editing work, but I didn't really enjoy any of it. Mostly because editing his podcast was tedious as he wasn't funny. Damn. I found working from home difficult as I could never concentrate and the motivation just wasn't there with my depression. He had a go at me a lot for not working hard enough. Warranted in my opinion, as I couldn't get the episodes to him when he wanted them and I knew it was frustrating. I would say he should get another person to edit for him and I would get another job, but he wouldn't have it. He liked how I cut up his podcast and said that no one else could do it that way, so he wanted me to do it regardless if it was late. As this was my first time editing and I had no experience or knowledge, I just don't think that was true. He just wanted me to work for him. I eventually did get a job that wasn't to do with him as I had enough with the arguments about money and wanted something for myself. I was excited about it and even Fraser was happy about it at the time. Then, not so much. He started telling me he didn't like not seeing me as much and that my job was putting a strain on our relationship. He said that me having a normal job wasn't good for us and brought up the freedom of being able to go on holiday if we wanted to, like he did when we first got together. The fact he would only see me briefly at night and me having 2 days off wasn't something that he liked. Less than 2 months of having my job, I quit because I was worried we would break up, and he again painted this wonderful picture of the life we could have if I went back to working for him. And then I was back to being fully reliant on him once more. I was trying to work on my editing skills so that I could work for other people and potentially do my own stuff, but never got that far before we finally broke up for good. When I broke up with Fraser, I was looking for a way to move out entirely that week. I had no hope. Friends couldn't house me for longer than a week. Understandable. I had no family to move in with as we weren't in contact at the time. I had barely any money in my account and I couldn't move or stay in a hotel. I was stuck, but I was on the tenancy agreement. Fraser agreed that I could stay until I got myself sorted. Neither of us knew how long that would actually end up being. It took 3 months after breaking up for me to finally get a job interview after applying relentlessly. I still edited for Fraser in that time, but with food and my phone contract, it wasn't enough to get me moving. Fraser never understood that to move out, I needed enough for a holding deposit, the deposit itself, first month's rent, and a little extra to live off of. I guess he forgot that I was a normal person. I worked my ass off so that I could leave. He demanded that he would pay for my rent and for me to move as he wanted me gone ASAP. He couldn't understand why I kept refusing. I couldn't take the risk of him paying for my rent because what if he decided he no longer wanted to? I would have been screwed. I would have been homeless. He had promised to provide before and failed to do so. So how could I risk that? I didn't just want to move out on my own. I needed to. I even told him I wouldn't take his money as I couldn't trust him. And then she shows text messages here which are actually a continuation of the text message we read in iNabber's document. And I'll just read them as a reminder. iNabber was offering the chunk of rent. And so here is what he says. Hello, sorry this is out of nowhere, but I think we really need to talk about when you think you're going to move out by. I know I said you can have as much time as you need, but I really need a time period to when. Because I can't lie, right now I feel in a major limbo, and I didn't expect this to go on for so long, and it's severely affecting my mental health. I'm going to suggest you find a place, and I will help pay a big chunk of the rent for the first few months. If it speeds up the process, I just can't keep going on not knowing when change is going to happen, because this is really badly affecting me. I want to be able to move on with my life, and I feel like I haven't done my best to help even after things. And as I said, I'm more than happy to pay for moving stuff and rent in another place because right now it feels like a permanent thing, and it's got me feeling like my life is in limbo. Please understand where I'm coming from. I don't want to hurt or upset you, but I also need to think about my own well-being. And before Fraser left this cut off, but now we get to see the full message over here where she says, it's not a forever thing. I just need to save up money, which I'm doing. I can't accept you paying rent for me because I can't rely on that to happen, and it's too risky when I haven't got enough saved right now to do that. I don't want to be here as much as you don't want me here. I'm doing all that I can right now. Then she continues saying, Fraser did pay for council tax. I think she meant to say didn't. Fraser didn't pay for council tax either, which led to us getting a massive fine. He was irresponsible because he has money. If he couldn't pay his own bills, how could I trust him to pay mine? Then she shows text where she starts off saying, have you been paying the council tax like you said you would? I've got a letter saying I owe 2,745 pounds, which is just shy of 3,500 USD. He responds, can you forward me it? It should be on an automatic thing as I have a direct debit. If so, I'll sort that out in the morning. And then she shows the pictures and he says, sweet, thank you. And she responds, I can't pay that. She continues, he would always have a go at me for the fact that he was paying rent on 2 flats, which was fully his own choice. He wanted to keep the old flat as a studio for his podcast and filming for his channel, and to have the new flat as a home. We also did not get the new flat based off of me having my own space. Fraser also said to me and others that if he moved, he wanted to make sure it felt like an upgrade. All of his friends had impressive flats and he wanted one too. I wanted to move back to our hometown or to Brighton, but he wanted to remain in London. I never pushed as I wouldn't be able to contribute to the rent, so ultimately it was all his decision. So for him to constantly use the fact that he was paying for 2 flats as if it was my fault was like, he always used money against me, constantly reminding me that I would still be in my bad situation if not for him and that I should be grateful. Once we broke up, I then had to be grateful because all of his friends were telling me to kick me out even though I had nowhere to go and no money and he didn't. The reason why he never truly kicked me out was because I would remind him that my name was also on the tenancy agreement. He couldn't kick me out. He kept pretending how nice he was because he didn't, but the truth is he couldn't. I wasn't planning on staying until the end of the tenancy, but it gave me a safety net. One that ensured me that I could work hard, move out, and not be homeless. I didn't want to live with him. It was a horrible situation for both of us. As you can see, I wasn't using him. I did not want to live with him. I just had no other choice until I could save money for my new job. Then she posts a Instagram story from September 2023 where she says, I've been sat outside for an hour, just not wanting to go in the flat. It's almost 3 a.m., girl. I need to sleep. And she captions it, I would sit outside, sometimes walk around the area after work because I felt so uncomfortable being near him. I felt safer and more comfortable on the streets than in the flat with him. Then she posts another caption where she says, lol, I got shouted at for an hour last night at 5 a.m. I can't wait to find a place to move into because live, laugh, love, I'm at the edge. And she captions it, the breakdown Fraser claims to have had was actually him shouting at me nonstop for 40 minutes and went on at me for an hour about how horrible I was. In this breakdown, he was slamming his fist on the table and shouting about how unfair it is that he couldn't slag me off online because of who he was. How he wished he was a normal person because then he could tell everyone how disgustingly evil I was. That hour was terrifying. He kept getting angrier and more aggressive, and all I did was apologize for 40 minutes and answer his questions. She then posts more text messages where it starts off with her saying, I just told you what I was told. He responds, very uncomfortable lies to hear, haha. She says, having you list off the people you've slept with and then shout at me for 40 minutes was pretty uncomfortable. He says, I didn't shout, I got upset, and we both spoke about who he slept with. You told me you slept with 2 people I know. She says, you don't know blank. And he says, I've met him before. She says, you're not friends with him though. You asked me who I slept with after listing everyone off. The amount of times I heard I didn't shout I got upset in that relationship. He would always make out I was lying about the things he did. Then she continues saying, Fraser claiming us moving in together very early because of a situation I was in is utter bullshit, by the way. He wanted me to move in with him before my situation became dire, as you can see here. And she posts text where she says, when I get to deadlines, I'll probably have to be a little distant to get things done, but that'll be the only reason. He responds, of course, your future is important. I will make sure you ignore me to finish them. Haha. I still think at least take a few months out before you finish uni. We could do lots of fun stuff in that time. Should take some time for yourself after 3 years of uni, even if you do need to save. I couldn't afford to take a few months off with no income. I would if I could. He says, you could just stay at mine for longer than usual, haha. She says, I couldn't afford London life without a job either. He says, I don't think you're understanding my hint that I'm just suggesting you live at mine for a bit in the summer and it won't cost me much extra as I'm constantly throwing food out like Seamus said yesterday. Oh, you know I would though. Do it then, duh. Too used to sleeping next to you at this point, so it must happen. Then she shows more text where he says, interesting. I'll ask him when I see him. I miss you. Fuming, why can't you live here yet? Angry face. And then she posts more where it starts with her saying, a sleepy boy. He looks so at peace. I forgot how bad the electricity is in this house. My phone is taking forever to charge. He responds, sad. I wish you lived here already. It's so boring when you're not about. Ha ha ha. She says, all I do is sit about. What are you chatting? He says, whatever you say. Right now, I can't be bothered to explain why I like you. She responds, Lamau, I'm going to go gym tonight. The top messages were from the 31st of January 2022 before I was told I needed to leave where I was living. From then on, Fraser was very excited about me living with him and talked about it often. Then she posts more messages with a caption, Fraser was obsessed with me from the moment we met. He couldn't be away from me for very long and did make me feel overwhelmed at times, as you will see. And texts that say, yeah, honestly, I'm not saying all of this stuff just to be sweet and nice. There are just too many coincidences. I think it really is just fate and almost like it was meant to be, haha. We get along so well too. Like so well, haha. Everything about this is just so great. I couldn't say a single bad thing about you. And you would make me feel so unbelievably comfortable. Literally zero anxiety when I'm with you. And you're friends with my friends. Like, man, it's so good. And she shows pleading face emoji with, I'm very happy that you're happy. He says, good. Maybe get some sleep. She responds, sorry, I'm so bad with being soppy, haha. He says, it's fine, you're not bad, I'm just being dumb. She responds, now I feel so bad. He says, why? She responds, you're just saying all these lovey things and I have essentially just gone. Then she posts more text with the caption, being away from me made him feel anxious and I apparently made him feel calm. I liked him and wanted to be there for him as he was overwhelmingly sweet, but us being together all the time was intense and this came from him. Then she shows text where he sends a picture of Kenji. She responds, see you soon, OMG. He says, Kenji on tour. Cannot believe I'm randomly going to Nottingham at this time. Sounds weird, but in my last relationship, I didn't once just get up and go to theirs when I felt like shit. So this is new, ha ha ha. She says, I hope you coming here actually makes you feel a bit better then. He responds, no, it'll make me feel worse. Obviously joking. She says, piss off. He says, you want to fight. Then she shows 2 pictures of text messages with the caption, how intense he got so soon did get to me and I wanted space from him. Showing that he messaged her at 10:56 saying, what time are you getting here today? Then about 2.5 hours later, she responds, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm really stressing out and feeling extremely low at the moment. I need time to sort myself out mentally and be in my own space with my stuff. Constant traveling and only having a suitcase of my things has been making me feel so unsettled, so I think I definitely need time to get grounded again. I miss going to Pole and seeing my friends there. I haven't gotten long left in knots and I just want to enjoy it whilst I can, you know? I don't like how irritable and sad I've been feeling, so I just want to sort myself out and try and feel like myself again. So I'm going to cancel my train and come down when I'm feeling better. And he responds, yeah, I completely get that. You're not settled right now and it must be super stressful traveling all the time. I'd offer to come up today instead, but I think you probably want time to yourself. Which if that's the case, it's fine, but if you want, I can come up. I'm a little worried naturally you're not happy with me, and please don't take that in the wrong way. It's just sometimes I can't tell if that's me contributing slightly or not. If you could reassure me we're going to be fine, that'd be great, because this is like the happiest I've been in a relationship, and you mean so much to me. Take as much time as you need in Nottingham, though, and if you want me to come up, I can do so, but don't stress about coming down here. The next time you're here, there will be things for you to put stuff in, so it feels more like a home. Right now, I'm legit moving the desks around and stuff, so you have a spot to do work, haha. Then she shows some text that seem to be scratched out. I can't really make out what is said here. And he replies, can't lie, this reply wait is making me anxious, skull emoji. That's not me being a pest, I'm just overthinking, haha. Then she continues saying, even when I told him I wanted time to do my own thing, he would make me feel bad and want to come see me anyway. The longest time we had been apart during that relationship was 1 week. It was intense, and with the other things I've spoken about, I'm not surprised about the impacts it had on me. He took me on expensive dates, took me on holiday after only being in a relationship for a few weeks, would constantly need to be with me, painted out what a dream life we could have together, and then once he had me, I was trapped in a soulless relationship in which I was belittled, confined, shouted at, and constantly being attacked by his dog. And then finally, she ends it off here with her last statement where she says, come early June 2023, I did take an overdose. I was not in a good place. I wasn't in a good place for a while after. I think that is very apparent with how I was begging him to get back together. I was begging and pleading to get back with someone who had often treated me so poorly that I wanted to die in March 2023. This is something I'm actually speaking to my therapist about, as I can't believe I was in such a dark place and still wanting to be with him. She told me she believes I have a trauma bond to Fraser and suggests that this is why I was behaving the way I did, dismissing the bad things he did and focusing on only the good to convince yourself I wanted to be with him. After a big argument, or if he's done something, he would always go out and give me flowers, or we would go on a date. The bad was always followed up by something good. The truth is, I was scared to not be with him. He made me feel worthless and incapable of being loved. I didn't see a future for myself as he made me believe I had none. Yet I was trauma bonded to him and couldn't let go even though I had not loved him for a very long time. The texts he shared were missing so much context from how he treated me whilst we were living together and what I experienced. I admit that the relationship was toxic, and I did play a part in it. I was picking fights with him over small things. I was angry at him for, at the time, what felt like nothing, and the way he treated me is no excuse for my behavior, and I have worked and continue to work very hard to make sure I am not that type of person again. The very lost girl I became in that relationship is a girl I didn't recognize as myself. It is only when I started to see a future for myself could I let myself go of the toxic attachment and start finally seeing myself again. I am still struggling with traumas I endured in that relationship, but I have never been happier and in a more secure place than I have been as of the last few months, but notably the last few weeks. I'm appalled that I had to share information that I'm still healing from, but I felt like I was given no choice. And so yeah, there's obviously a ton to break down in this document. And as I said at the beginning, Fraser pretty much instantly put out a 80-page document in response. So as much as I'd love to just sit here and break every detail down, I'm gonna have to see his response to some of these things because a lot of them are just allegations without proof really attached, or the proof is just her Instagram story. And so if it's going to be a he said, she said situation, then I'm going to check out his document, which is out now, and I will release a video on this tomorrow for you guys. As of now, I'm finishing editing this at 3 a.m., so I'm going to bed. That's all I really got to say about this, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.